Hello, my name's Rhoda Detour, and I'd like to thank you for listening to me today. I'm a published author and the co-founder of Connections e-Magazine, which is a publication where we bring authors and readers together. So look us up on Facebook or check out my website at www.rhodadetour.com. What I'd like to do today is talk to you a little bit about some of my books and where I get my ideas from, and that's one of the main questions that readers usually ask of an author is, how much of your books are real? Where do your thoughts come from? How'd you get into publishing? That sort of thing. So I'll tell you, my first book was actually more like a diary that I had written where I had worked for the post office for over 15 years, and there's a lot of crazy things that go on in the post office that the public never sees. So I recorded all of these items, and I basically put it together just as a nostalgia type of situation for my coworkers. But when I sat down and read it, I was like, wow, we have alligators, live alligators that come through the mail, and as long as they're under a certain measurement, it's legal to ship a live alligator. We had a human head that came through the mail, and it was wrapped up in a jar of formaldehyde, and when it started leaking, the jar had cracked and it leaked. And unfortunately, one of our Vietnam veterans, he was the one responsible to rewrap it. So this head comes rolling out of this jar. He has a flashback. He starts freaking out. He takes the head and he throws it on the boss's desk. And, when you look back at these type of things, it's really kind of funny. So I wound up writing the book, and first I did it as an ebook. And then, of course, my coworkers, they wanted it in a paperback. And at the time, the story was only about maybe 100 pages or so. And I was like, well, I can't put that in a paperback. So what I did was I made up a historical / paranormal type of story that was about 130 pages. And I put it together with Going Postal and put that together in one paperback book. And then some of the letter carriers had said, well, we like it on audiobooks. So I wound up publishing the audiobook as well. And a lot of people now say to me, well, you've done, 3-4 more books, and that one seems out of place because I have a workplace humor type of story, and then in the second half it's more of a serious story that is suspenseful and shocking, and people go, wow. And people say to me, why did you do that? And the answer is because I knew that the postal workers were going to buy my book. And I thought, well, if I can make a story that's interesting and good and serious rather than something that's just about work, then, whatever postal workers that buy my book and read the story, maybe they'll go and buy my future books. So I was really trying to create an audience and a readership from my coworkers, from the postal workers themselves, knowing that they were going to be my initial audience. And in all honesty, it worked really well. It does seem a little strange to people now, but it's listed under the short stories category right now, and it does okay there. But again, the first story is this funny situational type of story. It's not some literary masterpiece with a plot all drawn and intense characters and all that. It's more like watching a television show and laughing at a sitcom where, and one of the really cool things about that book that I had just found was somebody had Googled my name and sent me a link to a website. And they said, Rhoda, do you know that a quote from your book is listed on famouscelebrityquotes.com. And I was like, you're kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. So then I look on the website. Now, the post office is so diversified. We have people from all over the world. There is no such thing as a minority. There is no such thing as, imbalance. We are so equal with our demographic populations that the quote from the book that got a lot of attention was, the U.S. Postal Service is the only place in the world where you'll find a black guy, a white guy, and a Puerto Rican playing Filipino poker. And it's the absolute truth. We all get along. There is no racial tension. It's more of a us, the employees, against them, the management, rather than races or religions or creeds or whatever. So that story comes off really funny. There's a blogger from the UK. His name is Paul Ruddick. He's also an author. And he actually named that story A Roller Coaster of Hilarity, which I thought was completely awesome. So after I did that, I said, let me tackle a full novel. And I had just researched my family history, where some of my family came over from Ireland in 1820, and the one girl came over by herself, and she was only 18 years old. And so I had said, what would it have been like to be her coming over by herself at 18 on a ship? What would the conditions of the ship be? And I just sat down and I start writing. And I said, well, how can I screw up this woman's life? And I don't write and plan things. I just have to let it happen. I write chapter by chapter, not knowing what the next chapter is going to hold. So I wound up getting halfway through this book, and I had killed off a character, but I had not decided who the killer was going to be. So I was giving my chapters to my mom as I wrote the chapters. And what wound up happening was I had 5 different characters all hating and threatening the murder victim. And I figure, well, this is going to be real easy for me to deal with when I get towards the end of the book and reveal the murderer, because I could pick any one of them. So my mother gets like halfway through the book, 3/4 through the book, and she shouts to me, I know who did it. It was so-and-so. And I said, oh, okay, thank you. And then I went home and I finished the rest of the book, and when I gave it to her, I had written it as somebody else, because I didn't want the book to be predictable. I wanted the readers to get to the end and be surprised and shocked and, and enjoy the read and say, wow, that was a twist that was just out there. And so my mom gets to the end of the book and she reads it and she closes the book and looks at me and says, that's not who killed him. I'm like, yeah, it is. She says, no, it's not. That's not who killed him. I told you who the murderer was. And I was like, well, okay, but I'm telling you who killed him because I wrote the story. So, as my first full novel, I was really excited and really proud of that book. And as people start reading it, it's Tower of Tears. It's book 1 of the McCluskey series, which I'm actually working on book 2 right now. It's a family saga based in historical 1820, and I'm going to keep going with the same family, from book to book, and we'll see where we wind up. I'm not planning 4 books or 5 books or 10 books. We'll just see where it leads. And when the readers stop wanting it or stop caring, then I'll stop writing that and I'll go on to another series. But after I had finished that book, I was sort of emotionally drained because one part of the book is extremely dark and emotional, and this woman comes to the U.S. and so much is going wrong in her life, and she came to America to give her family a better life, and instead she finds racism, where her English boss was telling her, hey, you're not going to find a job, you're pregnant, you're a woman, and you're Irish. look at the signs out in the windows. They say Nina, no Irish need apply. So you're going to do what I say, whether you like it or not. And he starts making sexual advances to her, and it puts her in a situation where, what do you do? And, parts of the book, yeah, they get a little bit violent, but it's a reality situation of what these women went through back during the times. I really did a lot of research for this book, and I looked at the laws, and I looked at the way that the Catholic Church would deal with certain things, and the cultural aspects. So I really tried to make it realistic. And one of the critiques that I get happens to be that people think I was too tough with the Catholic Church. And I want to make it known I am a Catholic. I was born, raised Catholic. I went through Catholic school. My family's all Catholic. I have nothing against the Catholic Church. As a matter of fact, in the book, I think I made one priest look kind of, he did look kind of rigid. And then the next one gets more sympathetic. And then the next one, he's even more sympathetic than the first two priests were. So I think I tried to show different points of view from the priesthood of how one might be more rigid and the other one might be more understanding. But still, when it comes to, the law of the church, there's really not much that a priest can do. If you want to marry outside your faith, for example, you can't marry outside your faith if that person's not baptized. So it really wasn't a matter of me trying to bash the church. It was me trying to make things as realistic as possible. And so after I put that book aside, I decided to write a book called Newborn Nazis. My grandfather's name was Alois. That's his real name. And he had a brother named Edmund, who when Edmund was 14, he was forced into the Hitler Youth. And they had a sister named Hedwig. Hedwig became so upset that the brother was forced into the Hitler Youth that she vowed to bring down the Third Reich. And she was going to do it any way she could. In real life, the woman wound up housing Jews in her basement. Throughout the entire war, she even had American soldiers towards the end of the war in her basement. When their brother Edmund became an adult, he became a lieutenant in the SS. And so now you have here's this SS brother and this sister who's housing the Jews and trying to help people. And Edmund in real life found out what his sister was doing. So the conflict came about of, what does Edmund do? Does he kill his sister and everybody she's helping? Or does he ignore her? Or does he protect her? Or what does he do? So I said, wow, that would be a really cool premise for a book. And so I threw in some murders and some espionage and, a whole bunch of different crazy things and a bunch of historical facts like the Hindenburg blows up and things like that, just to try to keep it along the same, give it that historical feeling where you're really put into the time frame. Like at one point in the book, Alois had, and Jacob is their other sibling. Alois and Jacob had come to Philadelphia. So they had been here for a few years while the younger siblings, the Edmund, who is the SS soldier, and the sister had been in Germany. And what happens is the brothers that migrated to Philadelphia, he goes back and he visits Germany, and it's completely different. All of a sudden, he's talking to a shopkeeper who's, bubbly and saying, oh, you're from America. Wow, do you know Al Jolson? And I went to see the jazz singer, but we're not allowed to play it here. And this guy didn't understand that. He's been in the U.S. He didn't understand censorship. So he looks at the shopkeeper, just like, what are you talking about? What do you mean they don't play it here? And then a couple soldiers come in, and the guy gets quiet, and he recoils, and then tells Jacob, have a nice day. It's nice to meet you. Come back again. And so just little things like that, it really puts you in the moment of the time frame. When it comes to the end of the book, the last chapter is almost completely true to life. That's really what happened to Hedwig when the Gestapo came to her house. It's an amazing story, and usually people write back to me and say, wow, your storytelling is incredible. I love the book. There are a couple people that wrote back and said they don't like this aspect or they don't like that character. But again, books and movies are like ice cream or food. Everybody likes different things. So that's why I think that you really got to try different authors, check out different writing styles. I think my writing style with Newborn Nazi, is different from my writing style of Tower of Tears. And I got a lot of critique on Newborn Nazi, and eventually I'll probably have it edited and redo it, because it really is an incredible story. But and I'll wind up doing something with that eventually. Then we get to my new release that's coming out, which is Zodiac Lives. I'm a history buff, which is why I like the historical fiction, but I also like suspense thrillers. I read a lot of true crime. I could probably name more serial killers than anybody that's probably listening to this, and I don't know why I've been like that, but even when I was 8 or 9 years old, that's what I was reading, was true crime stories. And my mother thought I was crazy, and she'd yell at me, and I'd still read them. And, that's just what draws me in. I like that suspense. I like that thriller type of novel where, I'm scared at night and the wind's blowing outside and the candle is lit and the lights are off. So I was writing this Zodiac Lives, and it starts off where this little girl who's almost 4 years old starts having these nightmares. She's waking up screaming that somebody killed her. And she tells her mother, you weren't there to protect me. And the mother says, no, I'm here. And she says, no, you weren't in San Francisco with me. So the mother's like, what are you talking about? And the girl says, I was at the Presidio in San Francisco, and this man killed me, and he stabbed me, and he shot me, and you weren't there to protect me. So as the girl has more and more dreams, somebody in the family winds up giving the information about the dreams to a reporter, which winds up sharing it with the police, and they link the information back to a murder from 20 years prior. This little girl's basically the reincarnation of a murder victim. And when the police start putting these clues together, they realize that they're connecting this 20-year murder with the infamous Zodiac killer that was in real life, and he's never been caught. He was a serial killer in San Francisco. So what winds up happening is the Zodiac starts seeing this media frenzy that's coming about, and he emerges, and he comes back, and he starts tormenting the police and tormenting the papers and sending them letters and codes and calling them and getting on the internet and doing all kinds of crazy things, and then he starts killing people, and he tells them he's going to hunt them all down. And it's a thriller that has a little bit slight of a paranormal twist. And people have asked me, well, in the story that's published with Going Postal, that story's called The Creek. And in that story, there's also little kids that can see ghosts or that think they were reincarnated. And people ask me, what is it about that you keep using that theme? It comes down to this. I have 3 nephews, and when they were 2 years old, they saw ghosts. They saw dead people. I kid you not. It scared the living daylights out of me. I was in my house, and the 5-year-old kid said to me, "Don't be afraid of the man in the kitchen with the blue suit. He won't hurt you. He's a nice guy." I'm like, what are you talking about? And, it was really creepy because it was never something that they did to frighten you or anything. It was just something that was. So when the youngest was like 18 months old, he started having these nightmares that he was a black soldier who was 18 and died in Vietnam. And he would scream, "Vietnam, Vietnam." And after a couple months of these dreams, he actually wound up getting a fever and he died. They had to revive him. The paramedics had to revive him. After he woke up, he never had those dreams again. But during that time frame, he truly believed, and he's a Caucasian, he truly believed that he was an African-American 18-year-old soldier. And he saw a black man on television one time, and he said to me, "Oh, that looks like my dad." And I'm like, "Your dad doesn't look like that." And he says to me, "Aunt Rhoda, you're not listening. You don't understand. You're not listening to me. I'm black." And it was just like this kid was so adamant. So it really put a different spin, a different thought process in my head that maybe there are things that we don't understand. So in the story The Creek that's published with the Going Postal, what I did was I took the neighborhood that we grew up in and I started it in 1777, and it tells the story of this lieutenant back in 1777, and he meets this woman and he falls in love and a whole bunch of weird, bad stuff happens. And then you flash forward and it's 1919 and this family's dealing with the influenza and prohibition and the stock market. And then you fast forward again to 1965 and a new family is dealing with Vietnam. And then when you get to the last portion of the book, it talks about me growing up in the 90s and my nephews seeing all of these different people that I discussed earlier in the book. So the lieutenant from 1777, the kid actually sees. The man with the blue suit that was in my kitchen, in real life, that's what he told me, the guy in the kitchen with the blue suit. I actually had that character die off in my house in the book, The Creek. And so I explain how these different ghosts are, stories of the past that are coming into the present and how they, they basically won't go away. And so I have some other ideas. Eventually, I'm probably going to write a book called Killing the Kennedys, which is going to be a little bit of a time travel type of situation, but it'll probably still be a suspense thriller. Right now, I'm working on the McCluskey series book 2, which is the follow-up to Tower of Tears. That's going to be called Richard's Regrets. It's going to follow the family again, and of course, there's going to be more murder. There's going to be a murder that occurred in book 1 and nobody knew it, so they're going to find the body when they dig something up, and I haven't really decided what's going to happen yet, just because, like I said before, I don't plan an outline, but I think it makes things less predictable, because if today I feel like writing and I'm mad at somebody, then I'll kill off a character. If tomorrow I feel good, I might have the characters get married. So, I think it allows me to be a little bit, throw in some plot twists that people wouldn't expect and be a little unpredictable. And I hope that you continue to follow me and ask me questions and post on my blog. and check out the Connections e-magazine. There's a page on my website. There's also a Facebook page for Connections e-magazine. There's also a page for the Connections e-magazine on MelaniePSmith.com. She's also a co-founder of the magazine with me, and both of us are dedicated to trying to help independent authors, all of us self-published people, plus we want to connect with our readers. So we invite you to come and check us all out. And I have a page on my website called Awesome Authors. And if you'd like for me to add your link to my page, I need you to send me your pen name, your genre, and your Amazon link. Your Amazon author link is really what I would prefer, not the book, but the author link, to rhodadetour@gmail.com. That's RHODADETTORE.com at Gmail. Sorry. And, I can hook you up with that. I'm going to have the podcast listed on my website. I'm also going to do some how-to videos on the website to try to teach people how to work with GIMP, how to work with OpenOffice, how to format the ebooks. But I want to hear from readers too. I want to hear what readers want to hear, what they want to read about. I want to hear what, which authors you want us to discuss. I'm hoping I'm going to wind up having authors come on the show, and we can discuss whatever it is that's, going on in the book world at the time. So once again, I thank you for listening, and have a great day.